When it first popped off, I was gas. Thought we were getting a Qatari money pouring from the oil and gas. Closing the gap at the top at last. Clearing the debt at the club at last. Taking over the world, finally putting Man U back on the map at last. The Glazers finally being selfless. When it first popped off, I was gas. Thought we were getting a Qatari money pouring from the oil and gas. Closing the gap at the top at last. Clearing the debt at the club at last. Taking over the world, finally putting Man U back on the map at last. The Glazers finally being selfless. But then our hopes and our dreams got crushed when we saw Jim Ratcliffe offer get love. Even though Qatari offered more than valuation, they said nah, not enough. Next thing Qatari, they had enough. They've been there waiting there long enough. When they cancelled the deal on us, I was there thinking that please be a double bluff. But then our hopes and dreams got crushed when we saw Jim Ratcliffe offer get love. Even though Qatari offered more than valuation, they said nah, not enough. Next thing Qatari, they had enough. They've been there waiting there long enough. When they cancelled the deal on us, I was there thinking that please be a double bluff. It's over. We're done. I can't believe it, man. This is the OT99 Banter Room where opinions are shared and smoke get served. Look, as you can see, the enthusiasm is drained, man. It's completely drained from me, man. Obviously, like you guys, I heard the news and of the takeover, and it's just heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking because, you know, as a Man United fan, that was one of the last bits of hope, you know. The takeover, and was hoping for the full sale, totally getting rid of the Glazers, you know, and moving in a direction. Obviously, we had our preferences, you know. Some people wanted the Qataris, some people wanted Jim Ratcliffe. But the one thing that we all didn't want was the Glazers to still be here. And the fact that they're still here is a complete downer, man. And it just goes to show, like, you know, how much of, you know, a leech they are, man, and how much, you know, of a limbo we're gonna be in for the next how many years? Do you know what I mean? And that's a bitter pill to swallow. Do you know? I always maintained, you know, even though what's happening on the pitch, you know, it's what's going on. I always sort of saw it as like, you know, this is short term, you know, but going forward, you know, we're gonna be able to challenge your cities and even the merger Newcastle now with their ownership with sort of a unified board, you know, investment, you know, building the stadium, investing in the training facilities, investing in the females team, investing in like the surrounding area, investing in the team itself, you know, getting the recruitment right. And now it's just like, it's more of limbo, more confusion more than ever. And it's disappointing, to be honest, because Jim Ratcliffe, he came in saying, you know, he came in as that, you know, the people's person type personality. Do you know what I mean? He's from Manchester. He supported the club for ages. You know, and, you know, eventually we're seeing him putting in a 25% stake in a club and doing whatever he could do to win over the Qataris and, you know, and eventually succeeded in having joint ownership with the Glazers. And for me, that's not showing that you care about what the fans think, you know, as someone that you say you support the club and you want to do what's best. It's not showing us, you know, that you really are thinking about the fans like that, because if you did, you'll be going in and doing a full ownership just like the Qataris were, you know. And yeah, we may have this vision of, you know, going in with the eventual thought of taking over in X number of years, but there's no guarantee. He's offered obviously 1.3 billion, 25% stake, you know, multiply that by what do you call it, 4, you know, that's 5.2 billion. That's how much the club is worth now. You know, is it going to be that? Is that the fixed fee that he's going to be paying like when he eventually wants to take over? Doubt it. You know, the club's probably going to appreciate, even if we do poorly on the field, because that's just generally how inflation's going to go, you know. And is Jim Ratcliffe going to be able to afford what the club's potential value is by the time he wants to take over this club, whenever that is? You know, the club could be valued at 10 bit, not valued at, the Glazers could be asking for, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 billion. You know, it could be astronomical figures, crazy figures. You know, they wanted what, 6 billion now, and it was valued for half of that. So who's to say that they ain't gonna want 10 billion in X amount of years going forward? And is Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos gonna be able to afford that and take over? And it just poses a lot of questions more than answers, you know, and it's just more uncertainty. That's the key word, uncertainty, because we didn't want this, you know, like it was ages, you know, it took us ages to get to this position, right? And I know it's not done overnight, but we saw, the Rain Group get involved with Chelsea, and I know that had different pressures and constraints, all the political stuff. But then we also saw the Rain Group and deal with the WWE, MMA mergers. We've seen, big deals happen, in time scales like this, we saw, the golfing world work happening over there. We even saw stuff. I don't know if it was in the American sports. I don't even know who was involved with Rain. But we saw deals which was probably less complicated, you know what I mean? And if it was as challenging now with all the Glazers, all the 6 siblings squabbling about wanting to keep the club or sell it, how more complicated is it going to be now that you have Ineos involved? So now, you've got 2 parties fighting over potentially, how much they own, or if a new buyer was to come in, if we did get lucky again and a new buyer was to come in, I want to purchase Manchester United, not only do you have to deal with the Glazers, they have to deal with Ineos now. It's complicated. I mean, it's even more complicated. It's even complicated when you're dealing with just acquisition of players. We saw with Moises Caicedo, how Man United stepped back because they didn't want to deal with multiple agencies representing him. They stepped back. They was just like, I can't be asked for this. Now imagine, like, in the future, I don't know, 10, 20 years time, wherever it may be, if Man United does eventually go up for sale again, how annoying it will be for the potential buyer that wants to come and take over Manchester United when you've got Ineos wanting X number amount of money now, and you've got the Glazers also wanting X amount of money if they're still here. It's just a mess, man. It's just a mess. And I don't know, man. Like, for me, it's a stressful time, It is a stressful time. I mean, we saw, what Jim Ratcliffe or representatives close to Ineos have coming out to say, they're saying how, the Glazers, Ineos, wants to, obviously take over, and in doing so, expand the stadium to 90,000 capacity. And if he expands it to the 90,000 capacity, then we'll have the joint second largest stadium in the whole of Europe. So it will be, in the Premier League for sure, in the UK. So I think it will be sort of, I think Wembley's also got a similar 90,000 capacity. And I think other than that, maybe the Bernabeu's the biggest, the Barcelona stadium, sorry. And then, you've got the Bernabeu's up there as well, but you've got, Barcelona's stadium. And it's just like, for me, it's just, I don't know. I think we currently hold 75,000. So it'll be increasing it by a fair amount. Do you know what I mean? Like a good 15,000 seats. But I mean, it's positive. But the thing is when is it gonna happen? When's the timelines? Like, we've heard promises from the Glazers many times. Gary Neville's got questions that he posed ages ago. He still wants those readdressed. He's got about 16 questions that he wants answered. These things needs to be addressed. We need to understand the vision of this club, where it's going, the sporting direction of it, as well as the financial, commercial side of things. But we need to know Man United has been deprived from a sporting perspective. We have been deprived. We haven't been operating in the best and cleanest fashion. And that really needs to be resolved. And right about now, we just have uncertainty. We've got promises, but in reality, when is that ever going to be fulfilled? Do you know what I mean? And that's something that we have to take into account. Yeah. So like I was saying, like Jim Ratcliffe wants to expand the stadium to 90,000. I don't know if we've got the capacity to do that within the area that the ground sits on. That's something that, again, needs to be clarified. And like I said, we'll be joint second, but with Wembley, and then behind sort of the Camp Nou, who's currently on about 99,000, just under 100,000 capacity. So, that will bring in more revenue. It'll bring in more money into the club, I guess. But again, we just don't know when that's gonna happen. But obviously we're facing a reality that Ratcliffe is gonna be taken over and potentially is vying for the sporting lead on the sporting decisions. And again, like, it raises questions because obviously he has a number of enterprises, sporting enterprises. You know, he's involved in a number of like sort of F1. He's got Nice, he's got Lasana or something like that as another Swedish club. You know, he's got many cycling sort of. He's got various sports under the umbrella of Ineos, and he's trying to build this sporting franchise. You know, and one has to question where the end game is, where the motivation is. Is it to get Man United and turn it into the biggest club in the world, or is it from a sporting perspective turning Ineos into this big, massive, superseding, overarching global sporting enterprise as well? Maybe it could be two of the same thing. You know, two could be true at the same time. But I really wanted our owner that just solely focuses on Manchester United and bringing us back to where we needed to be. You know, and you know, Ratcliffe. You know, looking back at what he's done at Nice. You know, he took over in 2019. He bought Nice for 100 million euros, which is I guess seemed like a coup then. You know, PSG was bought for about 75 million euros, I think it was, by the Qataris. And you know, how much are they worth today? You know what I mean? So maybe Jim Ratcliffe saw that and thought, you know, there might be scope for, you know, business here, you know, acquiring Nice. And he did that, you know, in 2019. And in his first season, you know, they finished in 5th position. And I think at that time it was Patrick Vieira was the manager at that time, the coach at that time. And, you know, so they finished 5th in the 1920 season. And I think they finished again in the Europa Conference League in 2021 as well. But, you know, so, and I think since then they haven't really been able to replicate sort of like similar form. And it's just worrying because, you know, Jim Ratcliffe, like any new manager or new owner, came in, you know, boasting, saying, you know what, this is what he wants to do. You know, he wanted to take on the PSGs, you know, he wanted to displace them. And he hasn't quite, you know, lived up to that expectation. He hasn't quite fulfilled it in his time. He's been, you know, he took over in 2019, you know, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, you know, 4 years has come. And it's been longer than he's planned. You know, I think his expectations now has changed to what it once was, to being the dominant force and challenging PSG. So it's just one of those ones, like, you know, so you look back at it as well, like, so Nice, like before Jim Ratcliffe came, so in the first 6 years before Jim Ratcliffe, you know, came, Nice had finished in the top 4 position like 3 times out of the 6 years, you know, and this was under Lucien Favre, and then Puel, so Claude Puel, and you know, they just haven't been able to reach those heights. Obviously, this season, you know, they're the only club in League One to be unbeaten. You know, they're sitting above PSG. You know, they're second in the league at the minute, so they're doing pretty well. And you know, they've had to change quite a bit. You know, the recruitment structure, they've had to change that. You know, they've had, you know, before it was Jim Ratcliffe's brother, you know, that was part of the sporting, taking some of the sporting decisions as well, you know, and they had sort of the Ineos sporting director as well, that he had his experience in sort of the cycling world, making those decisions as well. And it's just like, those are some of those, you know, I think it was job for the boys, you know, some of those immature decisions back then, which led to maybe like Nice becoming this sort of mid-table team, which they were. But, you know, there was a piece of an audit done in the past where Sir David Brailsford, who was the former Team GB cycling coach for Ineos, and he's the director of sport, who done an audit. And in this audit, it highlighted sort of some of the good things, I guess, but then some of the gaps where, you know, Nice are struggling and areas of improvement, you know. And Sir David Brailsford, from that audit, it led to you know, Jim Ratcliffe's brother, Bob Ratcliffe, and Fournier as well, which is, I think, the person that was involved in sort of the recruitment, and leaving. And then you know, it done a clear out as well. So, and I guess, you know, that was part of their whole process of restructuring and getting this back to back to where they thought they deserved to be, you know. But Gautier, he was the previous Nice coach before he went off to PSG. You know, before he left, what got to me is that he mentioned, you know, looking back some of his quotes and interviews, he was saying, you know, that he was concerned about the people that was making the sporting decisions at the club, the transfer decisions at the club, you know, and he actually lost faith in Ineos before he left. And I'm not surprised, because when you have people that is, you know, hasn't got that experience that, you know, Ineos put in place, Sir Jim Ratcliffe put in place, you know, you're going to have these situations where transfer decisions are not optimal. You're going to have these decisions where, you know, it's affecting the performance on the pitch. And we've seen similarities with Manchester United, where we've got people that are not sort of experts running our club. You've got people making these sporting decisions that are not really knowledgeable on, you know, and we've seen it in our transfer activity. You've seen it many years in the last minute, you know, scrambling around for players. We saw it even where we was left with Fellaini, you know, under Mourinho, we was left with Fellaini. And even then, when we bought Fellaini, we could have got him cheap. I can't remember how much we paid for him, 28 million. I can't remember the price it was. And it's just, you're seeing it over and over again, repetitive cycles of where, like, we're doing last minute deals and scrambling. This season, like, it was a lot better with a lot of our players, don't get me wrong, but you saw situations with Anthony where we overpaid Martinez. We could have got him cheaper as well. And, you know, going on to this season again, you know, this summer window as well, it's just more issues with certain players, man, that's just getting dragged out. Money's like uncertainty about how much money's available. Do we have money to spend? Do we don't have money to spend? Do we need to sell first? Financial fair play is getting in. Like, what is it, you know? Obviously, we're not being able to sell players appropriately. We're giving players contracts that don't necessarily deserve it. Do you know what I mean? And they're getting big contracts, so you find it difficult to sell them. Do you know, we've seen the latest with Maguire. You know, he wanted a payout. Apparently, it was reported before he goes to West Ham. Man United was just like, no. So Scott McTominay's on huge wages. You can't get them moved. Donny van der Beek struggling. Like, everyone at Manchester United, it's just difficult to offload them, you know, and we're stuck with that now. And when we want to buy players, we're getting priced at different ridiculous rates, you know. And it's all legacies of, you know, all what's happened in the past. You know, with Woodward, he used to boast about how much money he's got to spend, and, you know, with a chest, and who knew that the world was just laughing at us and laughing at him? Do you know what I mean? And now, you know, we're paying the price for a lot of this type of boasting. You know, when we was doing the Galacticals that time, we're paying the price for it even up to this day, you know, because clubs are like, you know, we're gonna add on an extra 20-30 billion because it's Manchester United. Do you know? And it's just some of the challenges that we're facing. But with Ratcliffe, you know, these are some of the things that I'm concerned about. What experience, you know, how these performances was in Nice, you know, and you know, I'm just hoping, you know, he learns from that experience. You know, he owns a couple of football clubs. You know, we're hearing rumors about, you know, Paul Mitchell as the sporting director being brought in, and that's a positive thing. You know, we've been linked with Paul Mitchell for a while now. You know, he's one of the best in class at what he does. And, you know what I mean, as long as Jim Ratcliffe is not making the sporting decisions but leaving it to the experts, that's a positive, I must say. Like, you can't knock that, you know what I mean? Even under the Qataris, if you're hearing the name Paul Mitchell come up, you know, he'll be someone that no one's, you know, shunning at, or you know what I mean? Like, there'll be a lot of fans that are happy about that link. So just because it's Jim Ratcliffe, I wouldn't say that I'm disappointed about us being linked to Paul Mitchell, you know? But at the same time, you know, it's still just concerning about how much level of involvement he's going to be able to make and how much decision making he's going to make. You know, he's got 25% of the club, but in reality, you know, the Glazers obviously have a huge amount of decision making authority, and they're still the majority owners, and Ratcliffe is the minority owner. So it's just like, when it comes to these decisions being made, you know, who has the overarching authority to approve or disapprove? Or is it a joint thing again? And if the Glazers are getting involved, if they're not given over 100% authority of that sporting decisions, then we're going to be in a situation where we ain't making any improvements. And not to say Jim Ratcliffe is, you know, superseding an expert, but what I do hope is that he's learned from his mistakes with Nice now. And you can see in the league right now, it's early days, but it seems like Nice are getting their act together. And I just hope that those setbacks that Nice had in the earlier stages, that Jim Ratcliffe learns from that when he's taken over Manchester United, and he can implement the right people for the right positions to just keep it moving straight away. And there probably might be an audit like what happened at Nice. There might be an audit, and it might be that Jim Ratcliffe, out of that audit, certain people are have to move on. Do you know what I mean? Richard Arnold potentially. There might be some people that move on. I doubt Eric Ten Hag will be moving on. Not this season anyway, or maybe not even next season. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of the backroom staff, the senior staff, move on after this audit, like what happened in Nice. If Ratcliffe can move his brother on, then I won't be surprised if people like Richard Arnold gets moved on, and people come in to do the job like more experts, So look, he sees this, Jim Ratcliffe, as being the next step in taking over Manchester United entirely, right? Doing this 25% investment, minority stake investment, and look, we can see from the get-go, like, the Glazers didn't want to sell, right? They wanted this figure, but really and truly, I don't think they wanted to sell. And there's a lot probably that happened behind the scenes with the Sheikh Jassim, where he just said, what, I'm pulling out completely. Do you know what I mean? He's been taken for a mug, These are the people that hold themselves to high regard, high value. Whatever they get involved in, they like to see it through and win. They don't want the shame attached to them, which is why they probably pulled out before they got that rejection put out there. But Glazers just messed them around, literally wasted their time and messed them around. And when you're dealing with people that are like, billionaires or billionaires representatives and all these people, they don't want to be wasting their time flying all the way to Old Trafford, spending all these hours in presentations and being strung along for you now not to be taking them seriously, rejecting every bid, but not having any concrete understanding. Because to be honest, what the Qataris bid just over $5 billion, I think it was $6 billion or somewhere around that line. I don't know, about 5 billion something pounds. Look, if they were told categorically, this is the figure that if you offer it, the club's gone, like whether it's 6 billion or whatever, unless it was something crazy that we're asking for. But let's say it was 6 billion for argument's sake. They signed the dotted line to say, if you give me 6 billion, there's no negotiation needed. The club is yours unless Ratcliffe can match that. Then I would have thought that at least the Qataris would have thought, you know what, we're being taken for mugs here, overpaying, but you know what, it's an extra 5, 6, 7, 800 million. Let's just get this done if it's not going to cause any faff. But I just feel like with everything that the Sheikh Jassim went through in terms of making an offer, and then stalling again, going silent, and then them coming back and rejecting it, and then Jim Ratcliffe and then getting involved in this auction keep happening, that they just thought, you know what, you guys ain't serious, because we've been down this road before and it hasn't amounted to anything. Do you know what I mean? So I just feel that the Glazers just wasn't giving Sheikh Jassim enough assurances that they were serious about the sale of the club. Because I really do feel if they said, you know what, 6 billion, I know it's been put out there, 6 billion this, 6 billion that, but I really do feel if they told the Qataris, this is 6 billion, if you hit that, the club's getting sold 100%, no question, no nest, no stress. I really do feel like the Qataris, Sheikh Jassim would have done it. But it's just uncertainty and a longness about it all. Dealing with the Glazers, all 6 of them, it's just long. It really is long, and it must have been stressful for Sheikh Jassim and his team. So they just probably thought, you know what, I ain't got time for this. And the sad thing is, you've got clubs like Tottenham that's in prime position to be taken over right now. You've got teams like, I've been hearing rumors about Inter Milan and all of these clubs. Hopefully it's not in the Premier League, and it is in another outside of the Premier League if the Sheikh Jassim and these peoples are going to be taking over a club, But just imagine if it's Tottenham that they take over. Just imagine that. Just imagine that the manager's flying right about now. The stadium they just rebuilt. The infrastructure's there. Training facilities there. For them, Sheikh Jassim hasn't got to think about building massive stadiums or surrounding areas. Literally, he's taking his money and plowing it into the team. Do you know what I mean? It's just crazy what they could be doing. What they could be doing. Not only will Man United have to be dealing with Manchester Cities and all of these teams, but and the Newcastle that's emerging, but you've got now potentially your Tottenhams, even a West Ham. You know what I mean? Anyone could be turned into a massive. West Ham called themselves a massive club, but they really could be a massive club. If they got the backing of Sheikh Jassim and these guys. So look, it's a scary future, man. It's a scary future because although Manchester United's been able to compete with these super oil rich state owned clubs and all of that, because we're just a massive club, it's just, we've been seeing it. We've been reaching a point where we can't even get, Amrabat over the line now. Now it has to be alone. You're hearing things about financial fair play, and this is all because we can't sell players. This is all because we're borrowing, right? But and we're just reaching our tether, And the one thing that Jim Ratcliffe isn't mentioning is about this debt as well. Like, he did mention that, Ineos is going to absolve the debt, but if Ineos is absolving the debt, then where does that lead? You're, at the end of the day, Ineos is the one under Jim Ratcliffe that's going to be putting money into the club. If Ineos has got the debt and we're owned by Ineos, indirectly, we still got the debt resting on our shoulders. Do you know what I mean? And it's just a worrying thought that the debt is still going to be there after all these years, and there's no pledge or commitment to be like saying, you know what, we're going to wipe this and we're going to wipe it by like immediately in the short term, rather than these massive long-term sort of inventive ways, of clearing the debt. No, we just want it cleared, and we want it cleared like ASAP. Do you know what I mean? We don't want no dragged out 10-year plan or 5-year plan. We just want it cleared so we can flex our muscles a bit and be free. Because right now Manchester United is in shackles. We're shackles, bro. Like we're like a sleeping giant. Do you know what I mean? And just who can you imagine Manchester United having that ownership of billionaires that can really take over a club? Like, say we had Sheikh Jassim, Man United, the way we're spending already just on loans and all of these things, just through the revenue that we bring in as a club. Financial fair play ain't touching us if you've got the powerhouse of your sheikhs. Do you know what I mean? Or any other billionaire that's just got the affordability to manage our club, without some sort of consortium type of setup. We would have been unstoppable, man. We would have been unstoppable. And that dream is just, ended. That bubble's burst, man. You saw the picture circulating on social media of Old Trafford burning. And that's literally how Manchester United fans feel. It's crumbling, man. Hearts are broken. Generations this could take to get our club back, man, to move forward in the direction that we want, could take generations, man. And I really don't know how this club's going to go, like what direction it's going in. So obviously, on Thursday is a big day for Manchester United and a fan base, because there's talks of the meeting being going to be held with Ratcliffe and the Glazers, and this sporting decision ownership bit from Ratcliffe is going to be discussed, as well as probably more detailed stuff about the club finalizing the deal. But we could see a takeover happen ASAP. Not a takeover, but a joint venture happen ASAP. See, I can't even get my words out. I'm so and look, it's the new reality, man. It's a new reality, and it's sad. I was really, really hoping then that this was a double bluff by the Qataris, but they've already come out. The statements are out there. Everything's signed and sealed, and looks like we're going to be stuck with the Glazers again for another foreseeable future. And it's crazy, man. It really is. It really is crazy, man. And look, not to say that we can't achieve success, right, if things are done right. But with the Glazers there, I just struggle to see it, man. Just struggle to see it. And by the time the Glazers do move on, if they do move on, where would Newcastle be in that time? Where would Tottenham be in that time? Where would Liverpool be in that time? Where would Manchester City be in that time? Where would Arsenal, where would all these teams be in that time? Because they ain't going to be stagnant, chilling, waiting for us to get our stuff together. They're going to keep building, progressing, moving upwards and onwards. And it just feels like Manchester United's always like a step behind, bro. Always a step behind. And where we could have accelerated things to close the gap on your cities, now it feels like we're just taking 10 steps back again. Do you know what I mean? 10 steps back. And it's just it's gonna be a long ride ahead, man. Long road, man, where we've got to just ride the wave, man. Ride the wave, man. Like, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy, man. And I don't care what anyone says, man. Like, where you've got all of that confusion happening, Like, we can see it for the world to see, the sale of this club and all the confusion and media circus and everything surrounding that. How do we expect things to be going right on the pitch? Like, any business still, it will have an impact no matter what it is, you know. And the Manchester United fans, I just really want us to understand and notice that you may not be necessarily happy with what you're seeing with Erik ten Hag on the pitch. Erik ten Hag has a role and responsibility. Don't get me wrong. It's had to do with craziness as well, but mind you, but don't get me wrong. We want to see sporting decisions, football decisions on the pitch with Erik ten Hag, both in-game management as well as team selections. He still holds accountability to a degree, but we gotta keep this in our minds and not be too short-sighted, because we can't be challenging the likes of your Arsenals and your Cities that have total unity from the top down when we ain't got our ducks in a row. It just ain't gonna work like that. It ain't gonna work like that. You need total unity and agreement and alignment from the top down before you can start to see results on the pitch. And when you have all of this turmoil and confusion, it's a direct reflection of what's happening on a football pitch. And people can say, do you know what, the quickest, easiest way to get improvements is, changing the manager, whatever, get rid of Erik ten Hag, look what he done to Sancho, look what he done to Ronaldo, all of this stuff. But look, you're getting your De Zerbis or whoever it is out there, Hansi Flicks or whatever, whoever it may be. Zidane, even, you put him in Manchester United, they'll get backed for the first season, may have a decent season where they finish top 4, or maybe pick up a trophy here and there. And like Erik ten Hag, what will happen in the 18 months, 2 years, is the same whispers and the same issues that is happening now. The same stuff that is happening now, yeah. And I saw an article, yeah, about, that Enke shared with me actually, about the players, yeah, not really like feeding Erik ten Hag's training methods. And to me, I was just like, look, where have we heard this before? Like, where have we heard this before, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm tired of all of this Manchester United and the culture that's in Manchester United, because like we saw, this is in 2022, yeah, February, right? And I quote, Manchester United players are becoming frustrated with Ralph Rangnick's methods, with a section of the squad believing his training sessions are old-fashioned. And that was from ESPN, right? Yeah. So this is another quote, yeah. Manchester United players are reportedly not happy with some aspects of training at the club at the moment under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Again, yeah. That was about Ole. This is about LVG. Manchester United squad reportedly unhappy with Louis van Gaal's training methods. Manchester United players are reportedly discontented at manager Louis van Gaal's approach and are bored with tactics and training methods of the Dutchman's regime. Yeah. That was LVG. Again, this was back in 2016 in October, right? This is about Mourinho. Manchester United players stunned by Jose Mourinho's approach to training. Look, again, this is about Moyes, yeah? Some Manchester United players are unhappy with the intensity of training under manager David Moyes, it has been revealed. The Daily Mail says the majority of the United players have taken to training well. There are, however, currently some eyebrows being raised about the intensity of some of the work and the fact that Moyes insists on being so hands-on. Look, and now issues are coming out about Erik ten Hag and his training methods by some of the squad. And don't get me wrong, like, players have come and gone, and these are different players that are mentioning it. But you just have to just question the culture of this club, the culture of it. And many managers has come, some of the best man in Mourinho as well. They've come and they've said things when they've left about, Man United's not ready. Mourinho said Man United's not ready for modern style football, like this, player power and, questions about the board. And you just have to query, and you have to take this into consideration, why they're saying these things. They've got these non-disclosures where they can't say too much, you know what I mean? But when they're in the club, they can see it for what it truly is. The culture's still there, where these players now, they don't want to absorb, the mentality is a bit fragile. They don't want to take responsibility. Players come in on their high, they come to Manchester United and drop. And it's a consistent thing with your Sanchos, your Sanchez, Di Marias, Ronaldo, even our legend, went out poorly. And all of these players that come in, And you have to just question, what is it about this club? Why is it so bad, you know? Especially post Fergie, like what's going on? And you have to query like the whole setup, like because we're seeing different players, we're seeing different managers. You have the consistent there, which is the board. They're still there, and that's the consistent thing, and that is what needs to change. And we can talk about as fans, oh, Erik ten Hag this, Erik ten Hag that, but it would make no sense changing Erik ten Hag, bringing in a new manager when we still got this regime involved owning a club. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know what Jim Ratcliffe is going to be able to do to change the dynamics of this. It's the unknown right about now, but I just can't bring myself to think about my minuscule things like Erik ten Hag. Yeah, I know from a fan's point of view, you know, this is what we're interested in, it impacts. You see sort of like immediate results. You see the new manager bounce and all of these new tactics and style of playing. But ultimately what it results in is a manager that's not going to be supported, not going to be aligned in that sense. Do you know what I mean? Going to struggle with on-field issues, off-field issues. That's not going to make his job easy enough. It's going to impact on our results overall. You know, whether it's to do, you know, injuries amounting, or whether it's to do with, you know, getting the players they want, or whether it's to do with, you know, whatever it may be, it's just going to impact, you know, and we just don't want a new manager coming into that environment. Not that I want Erik ten Hag to leave, by the way, because I want him to stay. I'm tired of this manager rotation stuff every 2 seconds. But we're just going to see a new manager come in, have a little bounce, then everyone's going to be like, oh, this manager's not about that life. Ajax and Erik ten Hag, he was the shiny new toy, just won the league there, shiny new toy. We brought him in, and look how the fans are treating him, you know, just over a year. De Zerbi's the shiny new toy at Brighton as well. You bring him in, it's going to be the same thing. Do you understand? We don't need that right about now. We need to get our ducks in a row, sort out our own stuff before we bring anyone else into this toxic situation, because it really is toxic. So look, it still glazes out to the world and back. Look, still holding that 1% hope that, you know, they just decide to just move on. And we just have to hope that we can do what we can do on the pitch, man, whilst all of this turmoil is going on, man. And at least try to finish in the best position we can. Because right now, Premier League is done. Do you know what I mean? Top 4, top 5, whatever it is now to enter the Champions League is, you know, is looking very, very unlikely with each game. And do you know what I mean? It's just it's not very fun to be a Manchester United fan right about now. It's not very fun. But, you know, like I said, the only positive is, you know, Jim Ratcliffe is fighting for these sporting decision type roles. He wants to appoint someone like Paul Mitchell and people that are experts in taking those decisions and making those decisions. That's the only little sort of incentive I can see. And obviously he has plans to expand the stadium and that, but I'm not holding my breath with any of those things, because like I said, you know, the timelines are, we need concrete understanding. And Gary Neville's questions needs to be addressed. Like Gary Neville's got some really important questions. Those need to be addressed, and we need proper answers to these things, not some blasé, you know, non-timeline stuff. We need proper answers. And I'm assuming, you know, if Jim Ratcliffe does get his 25% stake sharing, he's going to try and address some of these things, or you would hope he would. But I just hope when he does, it's not those blanket statements, you know, that he really does try to address the concerns and the questions that us fans, you know, and our supporters, you know, have on our minds, you know. But yeah, look, I'll keep continuing to give you my thoughts and opinions on this matter. Obviously give you my match day reactions in the game. You know, football's back this weekend. You know, I'll be giving you my thoughts and opinions on a game like any other week. And summarizing what I have to say in, you know, my lyrical format, which I do week in, week out, you know, when we're playing. So look, that won't change. But yeah, man, it's just stress, bro. It is stress. But guys, thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Smash the like button. You know what I mean? Let me know your thoughts on this takeover. Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Are we done for? Do you know what I mean? Who do you think Qatar is even gonna buy? Do you think like we can achieve any success going forward? Like, let me know your thoughts and opinions, man. But until next time, catch you. Peace.